May 1945. At the Fighting Vehicle Proving Establishment in Chertsey, Surrey, a new British tank eases down from its transporter and onto the road. It's squat and wide, wrapped in armor far thicker than anything else at its weight. The front is a single slab of cast steel, 114 mm deep. The sides carry 100. On paper, it's built to shrug off anything Japanese guns could throw at it in the jungles of Burma. It looks indestructible. It looks inevitable. Then it drives 13 miles. No mud. No shellfire. No obstacles. Just an ordinary stretch of road on a calm May morning. By the end of it, the driver can barely move his hands. The officer overseeing the trial doesn't hesitate. He declares the vehicle unsafe, unworkable, and recommends the entire program be shut down immediately. It is. That same day. The tank isn't scrapped. Instead, the Army keeps it. It's shipped to the School of Tank Technology and used as a teaching tool. Officers are invited to study it at the end of their training, given a simple instruction: find everything that's wrong. There's plenty to find. This was the A38 Valiant, arguably the worst tank Britain ever produced. To understand how it happened, you have to go back to 1942. Britain's reliable Valentine infantry tank had carried the war on its back. More than 8,200 were built. It served in North Africa, Italy, and on the Eastern Front. But by mid-war, its flaws were catching up: thin armor, a cramped two-man turret, and a design rooted in pre-war thinking. A replacement was needed. Not just any replacement, a tank built specifically for jungle warfare in Southeast Asia. That environment demanded something different. Narrow trails instead of open desert. Close-range ambushes instead of long-distance duels. The Army wanted a vehicle small enough to move through rough terrain, but tough enough to survive point-blank hits and keep advancing. The requirement they issued in August 1942 bordered on impossible: 114 mm of frontal armor on a tank weighing just 23 tons. For comparison, the German Tiger I carried similar protection on a 57-ton chassis. Britain was trying to compress that level of armor into a vehicle less than half the weight. Vickers Armstrong took the contract, building on an earlier concept called Vanguard. The plan made sense: reuse Valentine components, keep things simple, stay within weight. Then the project started to drift. Overstretched and juggling higher priority work, Vickers passed the design to Rolls-Royce. More armor was added. Weight crept upward. The project moved again, this time to the Birmingham Railway Carriage and Wagon Company. Then again to Ruston and Hornsby. Each handoff left its mark. The turret expanded from 2 men to 3, growing heavier. Shared components with the Valentine disappeared. The design became more complex, less cohesive. By 1944, when the only prototype was finally completed, the tank weighed 27 tons, 4 tons over target. Of the 3 planned, just 1 existed. The armor goal had been achieved. Everything else had been sacrificed to get there. Under the hull sat a GMC 2-stroke diesel engine producing 210 horsepower, the same engine used in the much lighter Valentine. In a 27-ton vehicle, that translated to a miserable 7.6 horsepower per ton. For comparison, the Cromwell, similar in weight, had 600 horsepower. The American Sherman, heavier still, effectively used 2 of the Valiant's engines combined. The Valiant had 1. Its top speed, 12 miles per hour. Its range, barely 80 miles. The main gun? A 6-pounder, already outdated by 1945. Even the finer details worked against it. The suspension's lubrication lines ran exposed along the outside of the hull. Rear ground clearance was dangerously low, made worse by a protruding belly plate. The turret face created shot traps, potentially deflecting incoming rounds into weaker armor. The turret ring itself extended beyond the hull, completely unprotected. On paper, it combined heavy armor with minimal mobility. In reality, it combined the worst of both. Then came the trial. On May 7, 1945, the day before victory in Europe, the Valiant arrived at Chertsey. Inspectors immediately flagged the obvious problems: excess weight, poor clearance, vulnerable design features. Then they put a driver inside. What he encountered bordered on absurd. The interior was so cramped it felt mold around him. The brake pedal could only be operated with his heel, there wasn't enough room for a normal foot position. If his foot slipped between the pedals, it could become stuck so tightly that extraction might require amputation. The gear lever jammed against the hull in first gear, freeing it required a crowbar. In fifth gear, it snapped back with enough force to risk breaking the driver's wrist. The hatch above him struck the back of his head whenever the tank moved over uneven ground. And steering? That required pulling levers demanding up to 160 pounds of force, essentially dragging your own body weight over and over again, just to keep the tank on course. 13 miles of road driving was enough. By the end, the driver was physically exhausted and nearly incapacitated. The official verdict was blunt: continuing trials was neither safe nor feasible. The program ended immediately. The Valiant never fired its gun in combat. It never crossed jungle terrain. It never faced enemy fire. It drove 13 miles on a quiet English road, and failed. Only one prototype was ever built. No more were considered. 3 months later, the war in the Pacific ended without it. The contrast with other tanks is stark. The Valentine it was meant to replace served across continents and armies, proving its worth repeatedly. The Churchill, despite early flaws, evolved through combat into a capable and respected machine. Even the Tiger I, complex and temperamental, benefited from continuous refinement and powerful engineering behind it. The Valiant had none of that. Its real failure wasn't just mechanical, it was organizational. Over 3 years, it passed through multiple companies. No single team controlled its development. No unified vision guided its design. Each contributor added something, but no one took responsibility for the whole. The result was a machine that accumulated compromises without coherence. At the same time, another British tank was taking shape, the Centurion. Developed under a unified design authority, tested continuously, and built with balance in mind, it reached the front in 1945. It went on to serve for decades, across continents, in multiple wars. The Centurion became a cornerstone of British armoured doctrine. The Valiant became a cautionary tale. Today, the A38 Valiant still exists. It sits in the Tank Museum at Bovington, preserved exactly as it was, unrested, unflattering, and brutally honest. Students and officers study it, picking apart its flaws. A machine with armor thick enough to stop almost anything. A gun good enough for its intended battlefield. A design compact enough for jungle warfare. And yet, an engine too weak to move it properly. Controls too punishing to operate. A layout that endangered its own crew. In the end, none of the specifications mattered. The people inside it did. One prototype. 13 miles. No excuses. That's not a failure of ambition. It's a failure of responsibility in engineering, and a lesson the British Army made sure would never be forgotten.